December 31st, 1891, the Alton family are hosting a New Year's Eve party at the manor, of which their young daughter Emily wishes to attend. However, her father Henry rejects his daughter and orders that she goes to her room. Emily Alton is furious, left alone in her solitary bedroom, with only a dollhouse to play with. Eventually, these thoughts of anger overcome her, creating a supernatural storm of rage, which causes the disappearance of every guest at the manor, except for Emily, who still controls the eerie halls of the mansion and still yearns for revenge on her cruel parents. As of March 18th, 2023, the manor was put up for sale, and you are entering the building for an open house, ready to throw away £2 million on a spooky, run-down mansion in the middle of the woods. Of course, Emily has other plans for viewers of the house, and takes guests on a journey through her cursed home, showing you exactly how much she loves her family. Of course, there's a lot to sink your teeth into with this review, so it might be a long talk. However, if you would like a spoiler-free, more brief review, I'm welcome to doing that. That is your spoiler warning. So, starting with the queue line. Immediately, the tone is set. There is smoke pumped into the area, which covers the forest with a wispy blanket of fog, making it so that the gravestones, which are covered in clever references to past rides, really stand out as they block the smoke. Everything about this queue line is well thought out, because no one wants to have to stand in the extended queue line that Duel hardly saw opened. However, if it comes to a point where people do need to wait around, having an atmosphere that builds tension whilst also preventing boredom with plenty of things to look at is an amazing idea. I also recommend going to one side to look at the theming, even if the queue is short, which it normally is, as there are some nice details that really add to the immersion. Once you're through the queue line, it's on to the rolling pre-show, which is a pre-show that doesn't wait for anybody. Unlike Wicker Man or Hex, which have amazing pre-shows too, Curse employs a pre-show that doesn't require you to be locked into a room, which allows guests to go through quickly, but also allows me to run past when the tilted floor gets to my head. The pre-show is great. It tells a story with small projections onto the dollhouse. I personally think this is an amazing effect, because Jewel had the same dollhouse, and it really shows how the ride is a progression from it, but also seeing the little people in the house is really cool. And the supernatural events stirring around it really sets the tone for the ride using horror related to childish items. The blacklight effect where the writing on the walls is revealed is such a nice touch. It's nothing spectacular, but something about seeing the dim candlelight turn into a neon glow on the walls is quite satisfying for the build-up you've already seen. The ride system is just as rolling as the pre-show, as it always has been. No time to dawdle when getting on the ride because it will simply leave without you. Personally, I like this ride system. It maintains throughput and ensures that the people dismounting the ride don't have to wait in long queues while people get onto the ride. However, it does have some disadvantages as it turns out, because as more people pile into the manor, the number of vehicles going around slowly increases, and it means that half the ride is spoiled before you've even turned the corner. For example, when I rode it first at 11 in the morning, there were no vehicles in front of us apart from at the start, where distance was created with speed, although by my last ride in the afternoon there was 2 other vehicles visible in the trommel tunnel effect. The thing is, I don't hate the ride for it, or the park's decision to operate it like this. It doesn't take away from the effects too much in my opinion. They all reset by the time the vehicle gets there, though it would be nice to feel alone in the manor, rather than trailing behind the other visiting bookcases. Although the station itself is lovely, it's all worn down and covered in the old tarp used to cover up the portraits, and there's a nice banner which details that wonderful New Year's Eve party in 1891. I think it's nice that the story is such an integral part of the theming. It's got to be with this sort of ride, but it's so easy to overlook the importance of making a station just as much a part of the story as the ride itself. Once you're out of the illusion, you're not getting back in. Once you set off, there's a small room with a painting that transforms. It's a nice little effect that serves as a filler before you turn the corner. This ride really doesn't like to let you know what's coming next. Even after 4 rides, I can only tell you the layout when I'm not actually on it. It does an amazing job of throwing in the unexpected. When you turn the corner, the moving walls make an appearance, now working and doing their thing with soft lights glowing behind them. Nice detail. The fake door explodes with a purple flame as you approach it. I believe the door was also in duel as a few effects have been repurposed for the ride, and then you turn the corner to more moving walls. This bit is okay, but I kind of missed the point on the first time of riding, as of course the door you cannot go through represents Emily trapping you in the house, but I was oblivious to this detail until further rides. There's then the stained glass window on the wall, which has a picture of the manor on it. The window then smashes. Once again, it's nothing amazing, no dazzling effects, it's simply a screen. However, it makes the ride feel complete. Everyone knows I'm not a fan of screens, at all, but for some reason I didn't find myself daydreaming when those effects came past, because they just seemed to work in this setting. Obviously, because Merlin cannot afford to have a tiny glass breaking effect that would crumble in a light breeze, or maybe it's not worthwhile to invest in a giant Emily Alton replica for a 5-second whiz by a wall, although they did sort of do that anyway. But this effect probably has a place in my heart because it marks the entrance to the Great Hall scene, my favourite part of Duel, the most amazing room ever for literally no reason. It was maybe a little underutilised, though I can't really think of how else they'd use it, as the skeletons at the party tables are quite a nice nod to the New Year's Eve party they perished at, and the weird demons coming around the pillars would seem a little out of place here. The screen effect of Emily rising and then puffing into a cloud of her signature purple smoke is okay, it's quite obvious it's a projection, but I'm not expecting miracles here, and the flash of light is great for disorienting guests. But once again, even though I was aware it was a screen, that the room doesn't continue to where Emily is floating, I found myself looking at it each time, which shows that it does deserve its place there. The jump scare from the ghoul immediately after did get me the first time. In fact, every jump scare apart from the last one got me the first time, which is great because I got to experience the ride in its full potential because clearly I had zero clue of what was going on. The audio in this ride is so loud, and I just love it. Normally rides shy away from making things loud, but the fact that it's loud really puts you on edge, making the scares more impactful, though the volume did seem to decrease by the end of the day, which might have just been me getting deafened by the Wicker Man, but it just didn't seem like the jump scares were half as loud by my fourth ride. Anyway, the ride continues and there's a lightning effect over a portrait of Emily's parents, with the audio "Time to Die" as the strike happens. It's a small filler effect that nicely shows off how much she hates her parents for not inviting her to the party. Then, it's the long-awaited Trommel Tunnel, back from the dead, resurrected and working after years of nothing. But now, it's themed to a fireplace, with pictures decorating the walls, and if you have a good eye, you'll see a portrait hanging on the left-hand side of the wall of the original design for the tunnel, which was a big mouth. As you approach the tunnel, a flash of red light occurs, and heat is blasted onto you, replicating fire, and it had a wonderfully consistent effect on my visit, which was great to see. I love implementing hot and cold on rides to build immersion, and I can imagine this toasty effect will be great for those soggy Scarefest days later this year. As for the tunnel, it was horrific. Worked like a charm, but that doesn't mean that it didn't have me gripping onto the handrail as if we were actually going upside down. For some reason, visual illusions, such as the Hex Madhouse, really trick me, and it's embarrassing to say the least, as my head was spinning on my first ride. The rest of my rides, my head was fine because I had my eyes closed. At the end of the tunnel, there is a clock, which also spins, making the whole experience even more disorienting, as everywhere you look, something is turning. I think this is an absolutely standout effect. Other tunnels of this kind, such as the one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in the Alice in Wonderland ride, are completely lost on me. However, this effect was well thought out and executed in a clever, effective way. Oh yeah, and the clock is at midnight because it's New Year's Eve, and Emily Alton is currently in the process of possessing the multi-million-pound house you're planning to buy. It's a nice touch to maintain the story. A little Emily figure stands by a fireplace and a demon rises behind her. An actually very nice projection given that the scene in question has a lot of lighting that may cause disruptive shadows that may take away from the projection. Then for the strangest bit of the ride, you're taken around some corners with a few wall facade pieces containing smashed windows and gothic brickwork, whilst a hide-and-seek style audio plays, where Emily says things like, "I'm over here," or "Am I over here?" All of this takes place in complete darkness. It's an odd choice. When I first went round, I thought the scene was broken and was supposed to have lights, but once again, I think that I didn't understand its purpose until a few rides later. Even though I'm not a fan of the random darkness, though the blasts of air were lovely for the hot summer day, I believe the purpose of the effect is to build tension, as I was waiting for Emily to pop up at some point, so maybe the lack of jump scare is to simply lure people into a false sense of security. Anyway, a nice set piece is around the corner. Emily's perfect family as puppets, hung up in chains. The puppet show piece is amazing, it's a real eye catcher. I love how clean it looks, contrasted with the chains. It's perfectly designed. I also love how big it is, and how big everything in this ride is. No one misses out on an effect, and it emphasises how much of an investment this refurbishment has been, as enlarging every effect not only to make you feel doll-sized, but also to make sure that all guests get to see each theming item with all of its little details, can be very costly. Then bam! My favourite effect, giant hand from the ceiling with air cannons, gave me a star on every single ride. A nice jump scare that feels spontaneous every time as it is so loud, but it also adds to that dollhouse feel as Emily continues to grab at the tiny riders. The next scene is Promo Picture Land, where pretty much all of the teaser images were taken in what I believe is the attic. There's some fun scares, big spooky dolls jumping out around corners with strobe lighting and loud audio. It's always funny to watch people jump out of their skin as they focus on the wrong set piece and the dolls catch them off guard. You then have the body bags, people wrapped in spiderwebs, mummies, whatever they are. There are people strapped to the rafters, preceding the little spiders and dolls, which mark the entry to the familiar spider's nest. The spider is the same as the one from Duel. However, now it is not blacklit and you get to see it in all of its brown house spider glory, which I think is much more suited to the theme. I've always been fond of the spider. It's a large, engaging set piece, and I'm glad that they didn't throw it away. I can distinctly remember breaking down just beneath the spider a few years ago, and even in the dark, it can be admired for how much detail it has for the little time it appears. Speaking of a lot of detail for a little appearance, there are lots of discarded boxes and other attic-themed items, but you hardly see them as only a flash of light reveals them, which is a shame as they look quite nice. Then there's a flashed-up image of Emily, which is intended to be a jump scare, but the screen on the mirror has a defined square around it, so it isn't as effective as it could be. Not to mention, this effect then causes people to miss out on the main effect of the room. Emily hitching a ride in your now empty ride vehicle when you look into the mirror. It's an amazingly executed effect. The clarity of the projection is amazing, and yet there is no indication that you should be looking at it. Maybe a voice line of "I'm over here" could be iterated here to make sure that people don't miss out on this hidden gem. Luckily, the jump scare isn't sacrificed by people not being distracted by Emily in the mirror, as the whole point of looking in it is so that the doll then jumps out seemingly from behind you to terrify riders. I know that the effect isn't lost because it caught me off guard. In fact, my whole preconceived idea that the ride would have no scares and be as family friendly as Joel meant that I was fooled into being caught out by every scare. Sadly, no more screaming faces in this bit. Although there are still some swooping demons for a bit of nostalgia, I'd really hate to see the classic ghost train feel be completely removed from the ride. There is a loud roar, with a corresponding gull, but you wouldn't know that unless you craned your neck to see it. Some swooping gulls, accompanied by a nice breeze, and then a final Reaper figure which blows smoke out of its mouth. Pretty standard effects, but I'm easily won over by charming blacklit theming, so this is a hit with me. Finally, you're back into the classic graveyard scene, packed full of new goodies. You have the thing hanging from the archways, a bolt of lightning by a coffin which Emily quickly sits up in, another nice little projection. The jump scare from the strange bag scarecrow thing didn't work for me, but it did for other people, so that's another effective theming piece in the scene. But you have another hidden gem, as the effect of Emily on the swing has a little secret. She disappears. It's not always clear when you're going past that there's a mirror in the middle of the swing, so you have to look back to catch Emily fading away as you rumble past. Such a simple effect, but practical effects are absolutely the best ones, and it totally makes sense as it has already been established that Emily could be anywhere. and she is disappearing from the swing to come find us. The ride then picks up its pace, taking you through a gorgeous enlarged dollhouse, which itself contains a dollhouse, which I imagine itself contains a dollhouse, and imagine that this dollhouse inside a dollhouse inside a dollhouse. I think you get the point. But it's a nice piece to imply that you're trapped in Emily's game, and all exits from the house only lead you straight back in. This is true. I left the ride only to immediately get back on. I think big set pieces are used amazingly here. They enhance the sense of size from being a doll in Emily's house, and they can create fear for some, as towering structures such as the one here may be intimidating for some riders. Speed round some corners, a few clowns pop up, there are more voice lines, you see Emily's hand projected down, as if reaching down to find you. Then Emily's face is projected through an archway, which is great for theming. Not a fan of projections, but this one works. Absolutely it does. It looks like the now completely possessed girl is searching through the small windows of the dollhouse for you. And I think that having a small story-based detail here is much better than forcing a cheap scare. Lastly, you're taken through this wooden passageway, which has red lights flashing behind it. I'm going to be honest, on my first ride, I didn't quite grasp that perhaps this was her way of enlarging us to take us from the dollhouse. In fact, I actually thought she was trying to cook the riders. I know, it's stupid, but I clearly didn't understand the effect. But on my second ride, I finally realised what it meant. Then, the giant Emily scares riders, popping down from the ceiling with a loud screech and strobe lighting, and also a ride photo. It's actually a really nice piece. The wood panel falling as she breaks into the house to grab you makes the static figure seem much more alive. While it isn't the best scare in the whole ride, I've seen it work on some people, and it just looks really cool, and I think it's the perfect place to have a camera. However, a way of improving this would be to remove the flashing lights before entering the scene, as it almost looks like a countdown for the scare. I'm not sure if this is the flash of the ride photo, but either way it breaks the surprise of the scare in my opinion. There is then a key on the wall which has a note saying you can leave, which seems like a rushed ending, but I'm pretty sure the catch is that even though you are free to leave, the curse of Alton Manor is inescapable. Ride over, and wow, I didn't think there'd be so much to cover. It's quite in-depth in comparison to Duel. Very few theming pieces in Curse are surface level additions, which is great to see from Merlin, but I should probably summarise my overall thoughts on the ride itself as a progression. I think the Curse at Alton Manor is a solid 10 out of 10. It has an amazing way of increasing intensity. It begins with simple haunts such as Emily coming out to scare riders, then gradually it increases to demons, then possessed dolls, then all these supernatural creatures come out almost at once, which puts an emphasis on how the evil gradually consumed Emily as the ride went on. As the theming grows more intense and derelict, the ride vehicle also speeds up more often, taking you frantically around turns so that it's hard to know what comes next. Then, the audio is booming, you can feel each sound all around you, and the scoring for the ride, which I'll discuss in more detail later, is so atmospheric. Above all, however, is the element of mystery, which is only thwarted by the throughput adjustments, as each scene is shrouded in complete darkness before you approach it. So it's hard to remember what comes next, even after multiple rides, as each turn is pitch black and could make you enter any scene, but it is so unpredictable you can rarely be sure which one. Of course, I've outlined that some elements are not as strong, such as making more vehicles go around at once when the queues get higher, which was at a maximum of 5 minutes when I visited, an incredible feat, but it means that every effect can be seen before you experience it yourself. It does take away from the experience a bit, however the design team have thankfully prepared for this, as the effects in the ride have a low reset time, so that each effect is ready for you even if you've just watched it play for the vehicle in front. It's definitely best to ride early or when there's no one around. Now I'm going to discuss the more technical side of things, aka the exterior theming, the ride score and the merchandise. This is going to be a long video. The facade of the house and show building is majorly the same. Of course, the show building is the same green container, so it blends in, but the facade has some minor tweaks. The house has been slightly weathered on the brickwork to make it look even older. The front window has been smashed and a silhouette of Emily Alton has been placed behind it, which will make for a nice effect in the winter when it is dark. Overall, the facade looks the same, but it looks much more lived in. Even from the second you step through the door, it looks so much more like an old abandoned house than before, and it really immerses you in the area, having a building that looks like it could have just been found there. The queue line has had a major overhaul, as I mentioned before, but I love all the references to past rides on the headstones, and the fog is such a crucial touch, as it makes what would be a very long queue line through a patch of forest with a scenic view of the runaway mine train look like an adventure through the gloomy wood itself. The creepy doll thing hidden in the bushes is also a nice touch, not too hidden that it's not seen, but it's also far away enough from guests that it looks like it is stalking from the foliage. It's a nice walk to add to your collection at the park, and themed queue lines should be the next big thing, as it's always nice to have something to look at as you walk past. I like how the destroyed tower thing in the queue line has now been fitted with a plaque which summarises the story, as some people may feel awkward or rushed on during the pre-show and may be unable to see it. I'll read it here. The Doomed Party. Thus, in 1891, on New Year's Eve, the guests all died, or so you'd believe. Gone without a trace, dolls missing too. Emily, now possessed, wants to play with you. It's a great story piece to make sure that guests are clued upon the history of the property before they go view their future cursed home. Overall, the queue is absolutely perfect. You then have Coach House Confectionery, which sees a small hut reopened for the first time in forever, now selling amazing themed treats. I had a Biscoff bun and it was delicious, soft and spongy, although they were quite pricey. But it is perfect for an after-ride snack to reflect on the experience, and I even started to collect my ideas for this review. You can also buy crisps and standard soft drinks from this stand if you simply need to quench your thirst after a thrilling ride or after hiking to the ride in the first place. It has a small seating area, although only for parties of two, so if you're coming with a few friends or the whole family, you may need to split up or sit on the rocks in the surrounding area. Personally, I think this addition is so smart. It allows guests to stop and spend money, but it also allows for a sweet treat for guests to enjoy, for that extra burst of energy to run across the park each time a queue goes down. You also have the removal of the monument in front of the house, which contained the laser blaster zombie, and in its place is a more humble grave for, I believe, Emily Alton. This draws more focus to the house, looks much less garish, and still ties into the resident funeral directors, Doom and Sons. More about Doom and Sons. These guys had a big boom in 1981 when the whole Alton family and guests suddenly died, and now they loom around the site, possibly hoping that the house may see another economic boom. They even have a small reference in Raj's shop in the world of David Walliams. This means that we have permanent live actors at the house, such as the gardener, my personal favourite, who wandered between guests muttering strange things, offering a leaf to eat, and wondered why I was looping the ride, or the backwoods man who seems very nice, but his spooky appearance makes him very lonely. Having characters makes this area even more alive, which is odd because all the characters are dead, but these characters are great to have a comical conversation with, and I'm so glad they were roaming on the day I visited. I can definitely see these guys being used for a scare event later on this year, and as the park doesn't open on New Year's Eve, having an event where the curse reaches its paramount and things get intense on the day the curse was released is not fathomable. A scare maze or live actor experience by the ride replicating the curse worsening would be an amazing idea. Overall, the actors enhanced the amusement factor of the area and honestly kept me around as there is another experience to be had other than the ride, and with the inclusion of a food outlet, it really keeps people around the manor whilst maintaining the best atmosphere in the park. As for the score, it is gorgeous. As per usual, I'm not too sure that's how you pronounce it, has done an amazing job. It's so haunting, but it still retains the grandeur you'd expect from a manor. Also, it has the usual motif from In the Hall of the Mountain King, which is Alton Tower's equivalent to a producer tag. Going into more detail about the contrasting creepy childish theme compared to the booming grandeur in parts of the track, I really enjoy the eerie piano at the start of the theme. It's unsettling and sends chills down my spine. I'm not entirely sure what the instrument is that produces it. It sounds almost like a hybrid of a xylophone and a piano, which leads me to believe the melody is produced from a celeste, which is another keyboard instrument, and then edited in post-production. This unique sound gives for a slightly disturbing feeling as it is familiar, but not enough so that you feel comfortable. When the fanfare of the theme kicks in, it is so satisfying. The booming volume of it is somewhat reminiscent of Efterling's music. I say that because it creates the same mystical feeling when you listen to it. The combination of dominant violins, drums, and haunting chorus with the playful melody intertwined makes for a story in the song, where you have the innocence of Emily being overtaken by a chorus of spirits. Not to mention, the melody almost feels floaty, each note sinks into the next, which not only creates a supernatural theme with the imagery of the flight of ghosts, but it also creates the theme of adventure, as if you were about to go on a journey. I could speak for hours and analyse how I interpret this theme and others, and if you're interested, I will make a video on this. But overall, the soundtrack of the ride perfectly crafts an unsettling atmosphere that encapsulates the theme of the supernatural, taking over a party of great grandeur and overriding the innocence of the young Emily Alton. I think the soundtrack, even throughout the ride, with the sound engineering for the jump scares, elements of the score, and placement of Emily's voice lines throughout, is a great addition to Alton Towers' impressive collection of unforgettable soundtrack. Lastly is the merchandise, which I won't go into too much detail over, but there is a nice selection of hoodies and t-shirts in the shop. T-shirts are between £22 and £27 based on the design, and the two hoodies I saw were £40 and £34. The apparel is always quite expensive at Towers, so it was no surprise when I saw the price tag. However, I was surprised at how much I liked the merchandise for the ride, as I didn't expect it to be so subtle. One, which I wish I bought, had an embroidered logo on it, which features just the O of the logo, with what I believe is a girl and her doll. I think that the designs were amazing, featuring blacks and purples, and while I'm not fond of printed designs, the ones in the shop were of really good quality, and staff members are always on hand for advice on how to clean and preserve your merchandise. You also have pens, pins, and other stationery for those who want a small souvenir, or even for school trips or children with pocket money, so it's great that all budgets have been considered for in the shop. Also in the shop, there are some unrelated items, such as marbles, which were very popular with school groups when I went, and given the name of the shop being Attic of Antiquities, it makes sense that there are small, perhaps vintage items scattered around, but there are also unbranded teddies to match the repeating theme of toys. Aside from the merchandise, there has been a massive theming overhaul, as during its time as Spook Sorrows, the shop looked very bland and out of place. However now, it's never looked worse, in a good way. There are fake cobwebs on the ceiling, merchandise displayed in old crates and boxes. There is a rocking horse like the one in the pre-show, and there is a lot of attic-style clutter everywhere. It's an amazing use of theming to really finish off the ride with a pleasing-looking space, and also to keep guests immersed in theme even when they have left the ride, so that they can engage with the live actors much better. The execution of this shop is absolutely amazing, and it's so much more open, so while the theming is cluttered, you will not struggle squeezing past other guests as you try to leave or when trying to look at ride photos. To end this review, I want to give two small pieces of advice. The first is where to ride. If you want the best experience, sit on the front left seat of the ride vehicle. All the exciting scares, audio, and set pieces are best experienced on that seat. And even if you've already ridden in the back, those scares will not be lost on you. I experienced the ride in all seats, and the ride seems significantly worse from the back. Still an incredible themed experience, but you feel more removed from the theming. However, the second you move back down, it's as if you're riding it for the first time, every time. It's an amazing experience. Lastly, the disabled ride access is still open, so please do not hesitate to ask for assistance, as the guidance is not that clear. The regular queue line is not appropriate for wheelchair access due to the uneven flooring in the pre-show. However, if you ask the member of staff by the door to the house, they will happily allow you through, usually through the exit using a ramp. I wanted to add this in as I'd hate for people to miss out on this incredible ride due to unclear access routes. So, that brings this review to an end. A long one, but well deserved for such a ride that is a masterclass in reinventing an experience. It's an amazing addition to an already standout park, and I hope that with all the hard work put into breathing new life into the effects, it proves easier to maintain than its predecessor. If you visit the park, this is a must ride, and it is such an unforgettable journey that really puts dark rides on the map for another year. I hope you enjoy your ride. And this was Just Talking. Happy New Year!